Okay, folks, I believe it is 6 o'clock, so I'd like to get this council meeting rolling tonight. All of us up here on the council say, we're very pleased that you have all come to apply for the council position that's open. But we believe it's going to take an extraordinary long time for us to interview all of you tonight and for you to hear each other be interviewed. But nonetheless, thank you for applying for the council position that's open, right? Okay.
Okay.
So now
Very high.
yeah, and the pay isn't very high. So we will call the meeting to order. It is Tuesday, August 12th, 2025. We are in the council chambers in the city of Platteville, and I will ask Colette to start our meeting with roll call.
Kathy Kopp,
Here.
Lynn Parrott,
Here.
Tony McFall is excused, Barbara Doss,
Here.
Bob Gates,
Here.
Ken Killian.
Here.
Okay, the first item on our agenda tonight is a public hearing. This is for ordinance 25-03. It's a property annexation, zoning designation, and preliminary plat for Western Avenue. And we'll start with the staff presentation.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so the request is for annexation of 11.5 acres on the western side of Western Avenue. So the property is currently vacant farmland, no residents on that property as it currently sits. So the property is contiguous to the city limits along Western Avenue. It does have access to the city street for access purposes, obviously from Western Avenue, and it does have access to city water and sanitary service. So it does meet all of the statutory requirements needed for annexation. We do live in Grant County, which has a population of 50,000 or more. So we do have to have all our annexations reviewed by the state. So the state did complete their annexation review and did say that it meets all of the requirements for annexation. Subject to annexation, since it's currently in the township under ET zoning, and it'll be, if it's annexed, it'll be under city zoning. It's a different zoning ordinance. So upon annexation, we do have to designate a new zoning category for that property. So the applicant has submitted the annexation with the request to change the zoning to R2, 1 and 2 family residential. And that request, the annexation is contingent upon getting that annexation, or excuse me, that zoning district approved. So in other words, it's kind of a package deal. If you want to approve the annexation, you're approving that zoning that comes with it. If you don't want that zoning, then you have to vote no. So the other part of the approval is if it's annexed, the reason for the annexation is to prepare the property for residential development. So they have submitted a preliminary plat to divide that property into residential, excuse me, residential parcels. So they're proposing 6 lots, which would meet the requirements for lot frontage, lot area. And as I mentioned, it currently has access to city utilities and access to city streets. So it does meet the requirements of the subdivision ordinance and zoning ordinance as far as lot size, lot area, lot frontage, and access to city utilities. So the preliminary plat just kind of lays out the general layout of the property as far as 6 lots and the size of the lots. The additional details as far as connection to city utilities, et cetera, would be provided later as part of the final plat if we get to that point. And there would be a development agreement that specifies some of those additional details. Along with the 6 lots, there would also be an outlot that would be included. Part of Western Avenue technically has not been dedicated to as right-of-way. So this outlot would create an actual dedication of that right-of-way to the city as a city street. And then there is a portion of the property that is not included in all of this, and that just provides a connection from Western Avenue to the remaining part of the property along the far western side of the property where the wooded area is. So, as I mentioned, the annexation request does meet all of the state statute requirements and all of the access requirements that the city would be looking for. The requested R2 zoning is compatible with the residential desire for development in that area. and the subdivision plat would meet all of the zoning and plat requirements of our municipal code. So as I mentioned, it's kind of a package deal. So staff would recommend approval of the annexation and R2 zoning. And if that's approved, would recommend approval of the preliminary plat to create 6 lots as provided. If the annexation is not approved, then we should not approve the plat because then it wouldn't meet the zoning requirements, obviously, for a different zoning category. Any questions?
If I can make a quick comment, Madam President.
Yeah.
So apologies on behalf of the city. Through the process, we originally solicited out a letter that had the wrong information on the zoning put forward by the applicant. It went out to a lot of residents in the area. And those folks were misinformed through that means. The folks at the Planning Commission were properly informed, but we did not have potentially the same representation at that meeting as we do now. So I'd like to thank these folks for taking the time to come out and to voice your and express yourselves at the final decision here. So thank you for that. And then Director Carroll, if I can have you just kind of confirm then too, with the votes then tonight, the requirements for the annexation and for the plat, we're looking at a 2/3
It has to
requirement.
be a 2/3 vote of the elected members of the council. So we have 6 elected members. So 4 affirmative votes are needed for approval of the annexation.
Thank you, Madam President.
Okay, as in a public hearing, the first item then after the staff presentation is the applicant statement. So if the applicant would like to make a statement at this time, that would be fine. And I'm going to, several people have attempted to listen to council meetings that were recorded. And when you're speaking from the podium, it's extremely important that you basically eat the microphone and speak very distinctly, because that's been very difficult for people to hear.
Dan Dressens, Delta 3 Engineering. So I'm going to be part 1 of the applicant statement. Jim Schneller, the developer, is going to be doing part 2 of the applicant statement. I'm going to talk more about the details of what we're proposing. So as Joe mentioned, we are proposing to annex 11.55 acres into the city of Platteville, located on the west side of Western Avenue, between Camp Street and Union Street. We're looking at, when we rezone, or we bring that in, we're looking at a rezone designation of R2, which is duplex. The purpose for that is so that there's the ability to construct condominiums. You cannot do a single family R1 designation with a condominium. The intent of this is to develop 6 lots, sell those lots. Jim does not have any intention of building and owning any of that property or doing any spec buildings at this time. So the goal would be to have 6 families in there, or 6 condominiums, or excuse me, 12 condominium units in there. When we looked at this layout, we looked at multiple layouts over the last probably 6 to 12 months with Jim. We had layouts as few as 5 lots to stay within the township, and we had layouts as many as 36 lots to do a full-blown single-family / duplex residential subdivision. Due to the cost, the large lot layout, the large number of lots was reduced, or was eliminated, excuse me, because in order to do the infrastructure, water, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, streets, sidewalks, et cetera, we are looking at $50,000 to $60,000 per lot just for the infrastructure cost. Add in land, add in insurance, add in carrying costs. Basically, just by developing the lots, we're looking at a $15,000 to $20,000 loss. As everybody knows, people aren't going to buy a quarter-acre lot in the city of Platteville for $80,000 or $90,000 in order to break even. So then we started looking at some alternate options of how can we lay out this property and minimize infrastructure costs, but still try to get some nice buildable lots. And that's where we came up with this layout of 6 lots. Each lot has a minimum of 133 feet of frontage. The smallest lot is 1.5 acres, more than adequate room for a house. If someone would want to do an accessory building, et cetera, they could do that. The driveways would come out directly onto Western Avenue versus having an internal street. This helps with cost. The number of driveways in that area, this will be very comparable. For example, on Camp Street, between Kelly Avenue and Western Avenue, there is about one driveway every 100 feet or so. In between from on Western Avenue, from Union Street down to West Main Street, excuse me, about the same one driveway for every 100 feet or so. Here, we're going to have 6 driveways. One of them is already existing, the former Claire House. That's on the corner there of Camp and Western. That will actually be a shared driveway with lot number 6. Because technically, that house that sits back in there has an easement across the property that we're talking about here. And so we have about one driveway about every 133 feet. So we're matching the density of the existing driveways onto Western Avenue, which should not impact any of the traffic flow on Camp or Western, as well as anything into the Westview school. When we looked at what to do for infrastructure, we had the option of maybe trying to stay in the township, technically ETZ zone, where we would do well and septic. The lots are certainly large enough at this time to be able to do that in terms of area, but our frontage width, we would have to go a little bit larger. So that's where we were originally looking at the 5 lots in order to meet the frontage requirements of the ETZ. Here, it doesn't make a lot of sense to do a well and septic because on Western Avenue, there's an existing water main. There's actually 2 of them, a 6 and a 10. So we would connect the water directly to them. So we don't have to worry about drilling wells and messing around with the aquifer. And then in terms of the septic, instead of doing a septic system, we can do a low pressure sewer system. That would be a private system that would connect to the manhole at the intersection of Union and Western Avenue. When we go through, if this is approved and this would be annexed in, as Joe mentioned, it has been approved by the state of Wisconsin for the annexation has been. Then we would proceed with the final plat process, where we would plat out the 6 lots, and then we would work with the city on a water and sewer plan, basically showing where the water services would come into each lot, as well as this low pressure sewer system, which is which is unique to have this many lots planned for this, but there are multiple lots in the city of Platteville that already have essentially a low pressure sewer system. The daycare that is just north of Legion Field off of 2nd Street, they have a pump that pumps up the right of way of 2nd Street to a manhole, as well as the apartment building that's on the west side of 2nd Street has the same thing. So it's going to be the same system, but just instead of individual lines, it'll be connected all together. That's kind of all the technical information. Are there any questions about the technical side of the development?
These lots would be subdividable though.
Only after approval by the council, or the plan commission. So just because there's 6 lots and they are large, in order for them to be re-subdivided, it would have to go in front of the plan commission to have that accomplished.
So reviewing this, your client wants to produce what?
Move in. And to the microphone.
They
Your
would
client wants to produce
want 6 structures, and whether it is a single structure or a condominium duplex, that will be up to the purchaser of the lot.
So basically, your client wants to sell 6 lots.
Correct.
Okay.
And and I think we mentioned this a little bit last time, that we're working on several projects right now where they are going towards duplex condominiums, because instead of an entire house costing, say, $500,000, we can build a duplex for, say, $800,000. And now instead of having $500,000 for a home, we have $400,000 for a 1/2 of a condominium duplex.
Any other person with questions? Technical questions?
Not technical. I have a question about the price that you just mentioned, Dan.
I'm just using it as an example.
Okay.
Yes.
It's different from the
Yeah.
example you used.
It is, yes. I just was using easy math.
Okay.
So easy math, 500 versus, so basically what there's a savings, by having common construction walls and whatnot. on a better example, we're doing a project over, or I'm working with the Village of Belmont with a developer over there. And they have a house that was built for $335,000, but now they're looking at having some developers come in and do duplexes where each side is now going to be somewhere between 275 and 300. And this is many years later. So, I was just showing an example of what it could be. So,
Thank you.
if there are no other technical questions, then I'll have, Jim is going to come up and talk about some of the other aspects.
Good evening. My name is Jim Schneller. I'm the one that petitioned to have this stuff annexed. Kind of a large crowd.
Your address.
Okay, 620 Ridge Avenue. So I guess basically what I want to do is, Gene Weber presented some commentary at the last meeting, and I just want to address a couple of those points. So I did read or heard that there are 125 different properties in the RLO district, and there were 98 signatures on the petition. If I was correct, there were 68 unique properties. So that, to me, that indicates that 54.4% of the properties in the RLO district signed the petition. Now, whether you've added more or not after that, I don't know. But there were a lot of duplicates because 2 people in the household or so signed it. There's a couple of things in the statement that I want to, I don't know if refute is the correct terminology, but suggest that maybe the council doesn't take some of that into consideration. Number one was the RLO contributions. And I quote, members of our 125 person overlay district have led and contribute annually private funds to city associated fundraising projects that save our taxpayers multiple times any additional tax revenue that may come from this annexation. Examples include, and there were several given. I'm not sure what the purpose of that statement is in this respect. I can only see 2 things: that others outside don't contribute or don't contribute proportionally. And I think, unless you've got some data to support that, I don't think that's correct. So I don't think that should be an influence. Or, and I don't believe this, or a veiled threat to withhold giving. I don't believe that either. Knowing Gene, I just don't. I consider Gene a good friend, and we've dealt many times. And he's gotten a lot of money out of me for very good causes as well. So my statement here is I don't think that statement is relevant. So I wouldn't take that into consideration. There was the discussion of an investor that purchased an R1 home for his son, or his son was a student, and 4 of them moved into there, and it was in the RLO district. And it was enforced. So that's the way it should be. Zoning should be enforced regardless. I'm not sure how that plays into the discussion that's going on right here. If there's any zoning infractions, they should be enforced. So I don't know if that's a decision point. In my mind, I don't quite get it. There are a couple comments that seem to imply a safety issue. Neighborhood leaders have helped keep our neighborhood family friendly for the sake of our Westview Elementary children. And a second one, annexing with RLO will invite other investors to buy one or all those lots, build duplexes, and pack as many unrelated people in it as allowed. Envision 6 duplexes, 12 units, each with 4 unrelated people, 48 in total living across from Westview schools. The second comment certainly is the worst case scenario. And it is possible. I would suggest it's not probable, but it is possible. But this, what I believe was trying to be put across as a safety concern, is certainly not manifested itself in the area around our other schools in town. The middle school, every property adjacent to or across the street from the school is R2. The high school, every property adjacent to or across the street from the school is R2 or 3. Neil Wilkins, every property adjacent or to or across the street from the school is R2 or R3. So unless I've been that cloistered that I'm not aware of it, there haven't been any safety issues from zoning R2 or R3 around the school. So I consider that one probably a false argument or not a good argument for school safety. As Dan mentioned, we looked at 30 to 36 R1 lots. It wouldn't work financially. And I do want to clarify Dan's statement. It wasn't a loss of 15 to 20,000. It was a loss of 15 to 20,000 per lot. So to do that would have cost what, 450 to 540,000 out of pocket with no return, not to mention carrying costs. So obviously that's can't do. And, I won't go into the rest of it, but separate of this issue, I think the city should consider in its longer range planning assistance for infrastructure for people developing. Now, me personally, I'm not a builder. And so my intention is strictly to sell the lots. We made them large enough where I think, and I would hope that the homes that would go there are a little more exclusive with the overview, with the overview into the powder mills. And that would be my hope, but I don't want to burden that at all or encumber it by putting additional restrictions on it. I think the R2 has been demonstrated throughout the city as being safe around the schools, and it's a huge number, So anyway, any questions?
Questions of Jim?
No, thank you.
But you don't intend to build them yourself, is that correct?
I do not. No, and in fact, I'm not a builder. I mean, our biggest thing has been either investing, especially with the residential, has been investing in it, or selling the infrastructure, the lot itself, but not building. So for me to build, there wouldn't even if the lots came out even, the probability of us seeing any profit out of it is probably nil, because I couldn't compare, I couldn't beat anybody else's because I'd hire the same builders that other folks would.
Okay. Any other questions of Jim? Thank you. Okay, the next part of a public hearing are public statements in favor. And I've had, Okay, I've had no one register as a person who wants to speak. I have had 2 people register in favor of this property annexation, zoning designation and preliminary plat for Western Avenue. Those 2 people who have registered but are registering in favor but are not asking to speak are Ronald Rush, 510 Western Avenue, and Alexander Reiter, 510 Western Avenue. So again, like Jim said, that'd be 1 property, not 2, right? All right. That's all I've had to register in favor. Registering against. We got a petition that was signed the last time at our meeting. We had 98 signatures. There have been 36 more added to a petition. We, the owners within the established residential overlay district and or property owners within the Westview neighborhood, do not object to the zoning R1 or R2 if either includes the RLO, that's limited occupancy zoning. This is a new 11-acre development on Western Avenue across from Westview Elementary School. We are making this request because it concurs with the existing zoning of the neighborhood. If residential low occupancy zoning is not included, we object to this annexation. So like I said, there were 98 plus 36, so that would be 134 signatures on the petitions, and I'm assuming our clerk validated those. Additionally, I have had the following people register against, but not want to speak. So I will read through those names. Tom Lindahl, 295 Flower Court. Heidi Saris, 142 Moonlight. Carrie McCabe, 1250 Union Street. Tim Dice, 115 Moonlight. Brian Wagner, 1155 Union Street. Tanya Wagner, 1155 Union Street. Chris Budden, 475 Grandview Lane. Paul Budden, 475 Grandview Lane. Chris Boyganzon, 1440 and 1460 West Main Street. Dwight Nelson, 1270 West Hill Avenue. Steve Young, 1270 Union Street. Jan Weber, 1285 Union Street. John Connett, 110 Moonlight Drive. Judy Pierce, 1150 Camp Street. Priscilla Hahn, 920 West Camp Street. Melody Coppin, 1255 Perry Drive. Tammy Vanetta, 755 Eastman Street. Martha Green, 960 Camp Street. Barb Dice, 115 Moonlight Drive. Renee Cratcha, 1110 Perry Drive. Joe Cratcha, 1110 Perry Drive. Kay Young, 950 Kelly Avenue. Tom Young, 950 Kelly Avenue. Bill Wagner, 1536 West Main, Platteville. Rachel Jacobus, 175 Moonlight Drive. Constant Jacobus, 175 Moonlight. Mary Jo Hennessy, 1195 West Hill. Terry Ellis, 1245 Union. Jane Patterson, 1265 Union. Eileen Nichols, 1115 Perry. Tom Nichols, 1115 Perry Drive. Mike Hahn, 920 Camp Street. Val Wetzel, 330 Flower Court. Charles Dobson, 860 Eastman Street. Deborah Osting, 150 Moonlight Drive. Rob Saris, 145 Moonlight Drive. Gary Lindahl, 1130 Camp Street. Tim Wood, 75 Preston Drive. Terry Wood, 75 Preston. Bill Macbeth, 1723 Ruhr Road. R-E-R, Ruhr Road, Platteville. So those are the people who registered against, and I have several who have asked to speak, and so we will start that. Kathy Cunnett has asked to speak, so Kathy.
I'll get it right this time. I'm Kathy Connett, 110 Moonlight Drive. The comprehensive plan for the town and city of Platteville includes the following as one of its goals. Quote, provide opportunities for additional single-family development to maintain an adequate supply of single-family housing, end quote. By considering the annexation of the 6 lots in question, the city appears to be pursuing this worthy goal. Where the city falls short, however, is in allowing this annexation to potentially violate another equally worthy goal, in that rezoning permits must, quote, must not adversely affect adjoining or nearby properties in terms of loss of economic value or potential loss of enjoyment or use of their property, end quote. Allowing these 6 lots to come into the city as our R2, which allows use of the lots for multi-use dwellings such as duplexes without the overlay limit to number of occupants, will present great challenges to the neighborhood generally. Number 1, a possible additional 48 residents within those 6 lots, each with a car, with multiple driveways accessing the street and dropping the available street parking to virtually nothing, directly across the street, the entrance to Westville of Westview Elementary School would lead to daily traffic jams, endangering the lives of every student. 2, an increase in traffic at the intersection of Camp Street and Western Avenue would further complicate the traffic pattern of cars entering and leaving the school area. The city has already spent generous amounts of money there to address the situation. More would be needed. And number 3, an increase in traffic at the intersection of Western Avenue and Main Street would create further traffic problems due to the already high volume of truck traffic and the repeated daily speed violations already occurring. And since I live on the corner, this is very familiar to me. Increased traffic, decreased street parking, thicker traffic jams, danger to students. All of these items certainly, surely, obviously will lead to loss of enjoyment and eventually to loss of economic value of the existing homes. These are adverse effects the city has promised not to allow. We ask the city to bring these properties into the city only if they take the protection of the RLO zoning designation in fulfillment of its own promises to Platteville homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Nelson has asked to speak.
My name is Diane Nelson, and I live at 520 Western Avenue and have lived there for 6 years after I retired back to my hometown. In looking at the zoning question before us, I had to ask myself, what are the city's stated goals regarding housing, and specifically single-family housing? And I referenced the City and Town of Platteville Smart Growth and Comprehensive Plan that was done in December 2023. And in Chapter 2 of that document, it addresses housing, which is a big issue in Platteville. And one of the key areas in the vision statement for housing was that the community is committed to striking a balance and preserving its historic and established neighborhoods, protecting the environment and supporting development of an adequate supply of single families and multifamily housing that meets the diverse housing needs, quote unquote. And under that, there was a goal that to maintain and improve quality and condition of existing houses, which I would say would be our traditional neighborhood, which is in discussion tonight. With objective 2.2 in that under goal 2, it says, encouraging and supporting neighborhood groups as they may organize regarding issues and concerns specific to the individual neighborhoods. Again, that's what we're doing here tonight. And then under goal 5 of chapter 2, I quote, provide opportunity for additional single-family development to maintain an adequate supply of single-family housing. And on 5.1 under that goal is states protect residential areas from incompatible uses through effective land use and design controls, which is, I think, what we're working tonight towards. And then looking at the zoning criteria, when someone requests a zoning or conditional use before the city council, these are the following criteria they use. I quote, proposed rezoning or conditional use permit must be consistent with the goals and policies of the City of Platteville's comprehensive plan, which I have just quoted from. And the second criteria is the proposed rezoning or conditional use must not adversely affect adjoining or nearby properties in terms of loss of economic value, potential loss of enjoyment, or use of their property, which Kathy has alluded to. And if you look at the map, the nearby properties or the neighborhood is all R1 with the RLO designation. So in keeping with that, that's what the comprehensive plan has alluded to. The other document I looked at was the housing assessment needs survey that was done actually in 2019. And then this surveyed community members, what they thought about housing and the needs in Platteville. And this survey asked several questions. And one of the question was to rank factors determining current or future housing needs and location. The number one factor in people's mind, the respondents, was cost, which I know Jim has talked about. 41% said cost was a factor. The number two factor was that people wanted to live in a quiet, safe neighborhood with large lots and proximity to school. So those were things that people were looking for in housing location in Platteville. Another question asked, what type of housing would you prefer? And 81 of the respondents said owner occupied single family. So the majority of people in our community wanted owner occupied single family housing. And then it said, again, based on your experience, what are the housing needs in your community? And the respondents said affordable homes for first-time buyers. And then also they responded, 36% replied that Platteville needed significantly more single-family homes in traditional neighborhoods, which is what we're discussing here this evening. And another part of the respondent says that 36% needed single-family homes in new subdivisions. So those are questions from the housing assessment and what the local community deemed were issues here. But to summarize, to reiterate, we agree with the housing assessment respondents, the 36 who replied we need significantly more single-family homes in traditional neighborhoods, and for the 81% who said they preferred owner-occupied single-family type housing. We agree with the City of Platteville's strategic plan's vision to strike a balance in established neighborhoods and supporting new development. And I think that these 11 acres will do both that. It's working with established traditional neighborhoods, but also building a new small subdivision with new homes that would meet the surroundings or the milieu of the neighborhood. So building in the surrounding neighborhood is already zoned in R1 with RLO designation. And as you can see, there was 130 people who signed that petition, and they would ideally like to keep it that way. We would like to keep the designation, to keep the population at a low density, as Kathy has outlined, with some of the issues that are potential with the school. But understanding the need for lower cost housing, we were willing to have the R2 zoning, but contingent by adding the RLO designation. In keeping with the city's strategic plan and housing assessment, as outlined above, we're not against development, but we wish to keep the established traditional single-family home setting by adding the RLO designation to the zoning proposal and keeping the number of unrelated household members to 2 and decreasing the potential chaos for school drop-off and pickup. Thank you for your consideration of the neighborhood RLO request.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Tom Osting is next.
My name is Tom Osting. My wife and I live at 150 Moonlight Drive. We've lived there for 32 years. We're in the overlay district. I'd like to respond to a couple of comments made at the last city council meeting in July. At that meeting, Jim's spokesperson was using the word commonality several times when he was referring to the access of those 6 lots that we're talking about to Western Avenue as being commonality with the houses on Camp Street and the houses on West Hill that are opposite of the grade school, that surround the grade school. He used the word commonality, suggesting that there really wasn't much difference between what he's proposing and what's already there. Well, let's think about that. At Camp Street has 10 houses on it that go by Westview. Jim's property has 6, so there's 6 driveways versus 10. Those 10 houses, 2 people are single. The rest of them are all, 7 of the houses have 2 people in it. There's one that has a family in it, right at the end there, by Kelly. Okay. The one we're possibly proposing tonight has a possibility of 48 people in it. And all these cars possible with it. The person tonight, Jim Sports spokesperson tonight, said that these 6 kind of match the density that is there already. Really? 48 versus what we have on Camp Street right now? I don't think so. He also said tonight that there would probably be no increase in traffic flow. Come on. No influence. Okay. I'm going to move on from there. But the big issue is not how many driveways there are, it's how many people are coming out of those driveways, potentially. Another point that was made at the previous meeting by one of the council members is that we need to get together, we need to come together as a group and compromise with each other to help Platteville continue to provide the housing needs that we need. I believe that us requesting inclusion of the overlay district, we have reached out to Jim. We've reached out and said we'd be willing to have R2. I don't really want R2 to be honest, but as a compromise, I'd be willing to go R1, R2 with the overlay requirement. I think that's compromise. I haven't heard anything. Jim isn't even going to build it. He's already said, I'm not building anything. I'm here to flip it. I'm going to buy and get what I can out of it. We'll let the next person worry about it. The spokesperson said Jim is not really interested in developing lots. We already know that now. Another comment made by a council member at the last meeting was that Platteville needs to grow and the city needs affordable housing. And we agree with him. He had a real passionate speech and we agreed with about everything he said in there. And we think we're doing what he was asking us at the last meeting to compromise. So what has been the result? What's been the result of the overlay district in its history? All one has to do is go down any one of the streets in the overlay district, Moonlight Drive, Flower Court, Western Ave, all of those, and you're going to see the results of what the overlay district and the has provided for this west side of Platteville. The neighborhoods are awesome. They've been awesome ever since it's been in. The neighborhoods, I want to compliment the city council for their forward vision when they created the overlay district. I thought that was a very future thinking. The question before you tonight is, do we continue building on the success that the overlay has provided for Western Platteville and extend the 6 lots, putting them under the overlay district requirement? Or do we let someone come in and make R2 duplexes, which I see in the future, duplexes without any controls? I'd like to close with one example of what could happen if those 6 lots are not included in the overlay district. Because one of the houses just two down from the first vacant lot there of those 6 lots, 2 houses down, I can remember that used to be a rental. Now it's a single family and a single family home, but it used to be a rental, and the owner, the realtor personally rented it out for unrelated people. And I mowed the yard for the guy for 10 years, so I know the house real well. And he was commenting on different times when people would be living in this house who weren't supposed to be on the lease, probably a boyfriend or girlfriend. So at any given time, you had 5 or 6 people living in there, not legally, but they were there, and 7 cars parked out because somebody was spending the night. And I don't have any problem with people doing that, but is that what we want for 6 more lots? Potentially. Jim thinks highly unlikely. I don't see it highly unlikely. I want to thank you for your time.
Okay, the next person who has registered to speak against is Diana Naltero.
Hi, I am Diana, 845 South Chestnut Street. From hearing this from last week, I've lived in Platteville most of my life. Just the fact that hearing all this sometimes confuses me. Zoning and annexing, I'm not too familiar, but knowing that seeing some familiar faces in the crowd and everything, kind of makes me worried that sometimes what is the real root cause for what is the confusion with all of this yes or no to having this being zoned. I feel some of it is part of old factors of way of thinking and of how people have lived and not living in today's society and world. My main factor or worry would be that if we open this up to like developers, we have to have a real big talk about like what the nation has also been dealing with like China or companies, I mean, like, big companies like BlackRock and all this coming in, and it's now on our doorstep. I don't think that that has been one factor that has been considered, or the fact that single family homes, how many of these people in the crowd, how many of you, I've known a lot of you, you've probably seen me and probably think that I'm still this young little kid from my family that you're familiar with, but I've kind of grown up. I've would like to know like how many of you, how old are you guys and how old am I now? So how many young kids like my age or younger will be able to afford, like what we were just like saying, lower the cost? Well, a lot of things nowadays are cost a lot. And the fact that many of us young kids and youngsters here are more renting and they can't afford just a single family home now. How many of these homes that are in that neighborhood, a nice neighborhood that I think I can remember by Westview, and we're talking about speeding and all this, how many kids are already going into that school? How many kids? So how many kids will the community have to look out for? If we're talking about that, if we're wanting the fact of those 6 lots, like I said, think bigger companies or developers wanting to come in, and they will, like previously said, I think, was bigger people getting bigger complexes. It's kind of also the question of who do we want as a neighbor? Who are our neighbors? What neighbor do you want is basically what is being asked, is that is what I'm hearing. And I don't know what kind of a neighbor I would like. I would like a neighbor who would be a nice, good neighbor like me and my older generation that I've lived with. But the younger kids now are more adapt to be dealing with other cultures and all this other stuff. So I don't know how well it will be turning on or off to the older generation. The older generation, how many families do you see are already in homes? Are they your same age or are they younger? How many younger families do you see? We need to attract more of that into this place, but we need to be able to, I think, to invite more young younger people and generation to be able to start a family. Yet I don't know how we can all do that, but we just got to make sure that we aren't that we are not making sure that we aren't closing off our minds and our ability to know what can happen. So I just want people to be aware, careful that developers like big companies like BlackRock and all stuff like that can come in and also disrupt our nice community that we have been trying to obtain and continue on. So that's why I'm chose to speak.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next we have Connor Stremlaw.
I'm Connor Strumlaw. I live in 530 Western Avenue with my wife, 2-year-old son, and newborn daughter, just south of the lots that are up for discussion right now. We moved into this house 5 years ago and have come to love this neighborhood. When it came to buying a house, there were homes that we shied away from because they were close to larger multifamily rentals. My wife and I have, we were done our rental living and we wanted to buy a house. But we moved into this house because we knew the area was quiet and it would be a great spot to build our family, along with being close to the elementary school. My neighbors, Diane and Jean, have informed me and told me some stories of back when the house next door and my house used to be larger rentals, and there being some parties that resulted in some property damage in the area. As a homeowner and a father, I don't want that to be something to manage or worry about. That's why I kind of hope that these are single-family residences, or at least included in the RLO, to keep it the neighborhood that we have come to love. My wife and I are excited to have the opportunity for families to move in, though. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Don Whedon. Don doesn't want to, Don. So are you just registering and not speaking? Okay. Jean Weber.
Good day. My name is Gene Weber. Jan and I have lived at 1285 Union Street for nearly 50 years, along with other caring neighborhood leaders. When at the age of 29, as we first moved in, a neighbor, Betty Burgett, educated me on the importance of keeping the neighborhood around Westview family-friendly and free of multi-unit housing. Again, as we said at last council meeting, we are supportive of R2 zoning to enable families to start their lives with a more affordable home, but only with RLO, commonly referred to as the overlay district. If you'll take a look at the map, I think if our people have counted correctly, and I believe they have, there is 125 homes there, and it does represent about 85% of that neighborhood. Again, we are okay with R2 zoning, but only with the overlay district being added. If not, we oppose the annexation. I'm going to cut my talk short here because the points I think have been well made. But annexing without the RLO will invite other investors to buy one or more of these lots, build duplexes, and pack as many unrelated people in it as allowed. Again, envision 6 duplexes, 12 units, each with 4 unrelated people. 48 people, potentially 48 cars living across from Westview. And yes, Jim is correct. That is the worst case scenario. You add the overlay district and you cut all that in half, many families have waited some time to move into our neighborhood, candidly, because of the RLO overlay district and our family-friendly neighborhood. Others are constantly asking us to keep them appraised of potential homes that may be coming open. It is highly likely that the RLO will help the current property owner sell those 6 lots. Per Joe Carroll, you as council members have full zoning authority, so you can require RLO zoning. Or if you prefer, simply vote the annexation / zoning request up or down, reject the annexation for now, and leave it to the owner to resubmit if that path is chosen. That said, my suggestion would simply be to make your motion to approve the annexation with R2 and RLO added. That would enable the owner to decide later to move ahead if he's so inclined to do so without incurring additional expenses, without resubmitting another annex / zoning request and incurring another fee. Finally, to wrap up, I want to thank all the city administrators, planning commissions, city council, neighbors, and owners for working through the annexation and zoning challenges as we all strive to serve Platteville better. And I do want to thank the neighborhood who have turned out now twice to help us address this situation. We appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that's all the people who have registered against or registered to speak against. So we will move on to the 5th item here, which were public statements in general. And I have no one who has asked to speak in general. That means we'll move on to council discussion.
I have some
Anybody?
thoughts.
Okay?
Well, first, Mr. Schneller, I appreciate what you're doing. I think that the idea of developing more housing in Platteville is a good idea, and I doubt if anybody in here disagrees with that. I've given a lot of thought to, I guess, what my responsibility is as an alderperson. And I think one is to represent the constituents. 2 would be to follow the city's comprehensive plan and the housing development's needs assessment. And 3 is really to focus on what the city needs in terms of housing. And I did some research and looked into that. But as far as representing the constituents go, I think the 134 signatures, it speaks for itself. I know some of those signatures came from the same household and maybe even from outside the overlay district we're considering a little bit, but it's still a lot. And there are a lot of people here. That 85% of the properties are already zoned RLO is significant. And I know, Mr. Schneller, you mentioned that, I guess the action that the council took earlier on that other house in the neighborhood, and I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I was thinking that that person, the council enforced the RLO standing, but that person also wanted to change he did not want to change it and get rid of the RLO.
It was a person who bought a house without knowledge.
But did
that-
they want to try to change that so it was no longer?
Oh, yeah, that would have, yeah.
And I think that the fact that the council negated that meant that they were trying to maintain the character of the neighborhood. As far as the comprehensive plan goes, as Diane Nelson mentioned, maintaining the character of the neighborhood is something that is in the comprehensive plan, and that's something that I guess continuing the RLO designation would do, and providing an adequate supply of single-family homes, which Kathy Conant mentioned, and it's goal number 5, is something that this would do as well, whether these are duplexes or single-family homes. I think they'd serve that purpose. But the one thing I was really curious about was what Platteville needs. And I kind of looked at the population growth and the development over the last, say, 15 years. And according to the last two census counts, in 2010, Platteville was 11,222, and 2020 it was 11,800. So it had grown around 600. And in that same time, the university population had decreased around 1,400. And I actually looked at 2019, so it wasn't affected by COVID. And that was around 1,400 drop. So the fact that it increased by 600 with a 1,400 drop in student population made me think quite a few people had moved to town that were not students. And those people would need smaller homes, affordable middle-income homes, if not just single-family homes. And I also looked to see what has happened during that time. And Fox Ridge Apartments was built in 2008, so just before that, 84 units. Dodge House in 2011, 48 units. Washington Place in 2012, 38 units. Twin Pines in 2012, 48 units. Ruxton Apartments in 2019, 71 units. So in that time from 2008 to 2019, that was a total of 289 units. And I called UWP and asked what their housing situation was. And during that time, they actually closed 2 dorms. And the enrollment had dropped enough that they had a surplus of housing. And one of them is being reopened this fall. And but it's going to be at a quarter to a third capacity. So the others is being used for other purposes or being mothballed. And at the same time, I'm not exactly sure how much construction for starter homes or for younger people has happened. I know Keystone Estates was built, and that's been a great addition, but I don't think it's filled the entire need. And as far as duplexes go, I think that they would serve a great purpose. As Dan had mentioned last time, the cost is lower. It would be better for younger families, maybe for people like Kathy and Diane, retired and either came back to Platteville or were downsizing. And so I think those are all things to consider. I know that my mother-in-law lives in Tamarack Trace, and whenever a condo is available there, it goes pretty quickly. So there is a demand. There's a demand for condos and a demand for, I guess, smaller homes. But those are my thoughts.
Okay, anybody else? Lynn?
So I just wanted to kind of copy or ditto what you were saying. I too have developed an ideology that I want to follow what the city's plan, but base it on the constituents. I'm all for that. I've always wanted inclusion. I'm an inclusion part of. I want you to be included, but I too am beautiful, but I'm getting older too. Now, I agree with the baby girl back there. I do agree that we want to be fair, but when I think about Platteville, I've been here since 2017, and I came from a big city, came from Chicago, and I went to suburbs of Chicago, which is as busy or busier than, I mean, it's nothing like Platteville. Platteville is a calm setting as far as I'm concerned. And rooting in Platteville, I have to look at it like I would the city. In big cities, of course, you have an area where there are a lot of people, and then we call them suburbs because they way back over there where it's 4 or 5 grandmamas. And if that is what you guys have, you purchased your homes, you bought your area, you have become accustomed to that type of living. If you can show us that it's not going to be the blessing that's a curse to somebody else, the thing that you like now in 10 years, or let's say 30 years, because y'all will still be here in 10 years, but let's say in 30 years, when your grandkids are taking it over, is that what they want? If we all, so when she talks about the future and being unified, are we actually being fair? Now, I'm going to tell you, for my money, I want what I want. If I want to come home and it's quiet and I don't want no kids. I totally agree. I totally agree with that. I got 13 grandkids and I lock the door on them a lot. So if you don't want to be, but because that's your home, I totally get that. But I want to stay within whatever is gonna, I hate to say profit the city, but it's gonna work for the city. And so I am so for what, well, this is good conversation. This is really good conversation. And yeah, this is good conversation. I'm excited about this. Because I think it's anyway, go ahead. It's good conversation. I'm done.
You're done? Okay.
I'm done.
Anybody else?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
All right, Kathy?
Yeah. This is a first for me. I have been on the council for over 5.5 years. And I was really excited seeing all of you come in thinking that you were signing up to fill this vacant spot here. Because I'll tell you, this is not fun. This is not fun. And I come from a number of different perspectives here. Number one, I have known Jim Schneller probably all of his life because I am older than him and by quite a bit actually. And Jim is a lifelong resident of Platteville. He is a friend of Platteville and he has done yes, he's an investor. He's done well, but what he has done has increased the quality of life for all of us here. So with that in context, I mean, it's not just commercial, it's housing, but our challenge here is now what do we do? Because on a lot of meetings we go to, there's a lot of challenges. Grant County Economic Development, every month we hear all the communities saying we need housing, need housing, need housing. We have a housing study that has been alluded to, and I just want to point out that that was dated 2019. It's old. So we should assume, and we've come through COVID, we've come through all kinds of issues. We need to be looking at that again to make sure that we know exactly when we're touting the fact that we have a housing study. I think it probably needs to be updated. And a challenge that I see is, as a community, one of our efforts, directions, the strategies is to increase the tax base. We were struggling with that. So economic development, whether or not it means commercial or housing, is something that we really need to place a high priority on to be able to continue to offer all the resources that the city does. So what I'm challenged with in part is the fact, because of the turnout and this conversation, it raises the awareness to me when we talk about community housing. I'm not sure we're all on the same page, because we are obligated to be pursuing housing. I mean, that's our job sitting up here. But when in a few experiences that I remember, do you remember the Woody property on West Main Street where Twin Pines is? When that was sold, there was an uprising because I was here in a meeting and an individual said, well, I'm not in favor of that because it's going to ruin my view. Well, look what happened. It's a wonderful asset. It is a wonderful asset that came about. Not without controversy and probably compromise. That part I don't remember. But then more recent than that, I want to say maybe 3 years ago, we had a young Platteville born and raised investor who came to us with a concept for a subdivision up in my new neighborhood, up in Golden Heights. And his request was to put smaller lots, same size house, but smaller lots, with the concept that we're challenged, we need housing. How do we make it more affordable? His presentation was smaller lots. Well, guess what? That got shot down. It got shot down because the neighborhood was not in favor. And I want you all to understand that I used to live on Second Street, crazy busy area. My husband and I chose when we moved up, we're up on Cadillac Drive in that neighborhood now. We chose to be there because as we're aging, our lifestyle has changed. We want that quiet, more, I get that. I get that with the want for this zoning overlay. I understand that we want to keep it. But our challenge is, how do we balance that? And one of the things I'm going to say that is like nails on a chalkboard to me, and you're gonna have to excuse me because I'm married to a carpenter he was a carpenter for 42 years. So many years I'd come home and tell him, yeah, we were talking about affordable housing. And one night he just said, will you stop? He said, I'm a builder. He said, why is everybody talking about affordable housing? He said, affordable for who? He said, we can build a little 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom house that's affordable to somebody. But he said, somebody might come in and he says, we built houses that are 5 bedrooms, 3 stories. And he says, that's affordable to somebody else. So he said, you have to quantify it. What are you talking about when you say affordable housing? So it comes back to, I get what we're talking about, that to build a house is really, really difficult anymore. And I feel bad for young families that, I mean, I have grandkids in their mid-20s that are challenged right now that want to own homes, and it's a ways off. But I want to come back to part of our challenge and what's, I think I would like to see the city reevaluate what we're talking about when we're talking housing, so that we don't have another Jim Schneller come and say, I have, as an investor, purchased land because you said you needed it, and I followed all the rules. They work. We heard that this has been in the works for 6 to 12 months, got all the permits, everybody signed off saying, yeah, it fit all the criteria. But then we still have this issue. So if anybody out there can explain to me how we identify that. I mean, how do we use the word compromise. We want to see, we want to see the opportunity for more housing. But this is an issue that's here right now. I'm looking even at the bigger picture. Where do we go next week? Once this has been settled as a city, how do 7 people make that decision if we don't have the conversation and really understand more about what the community really wants? It's all fine to, read the census and constantly hearing at these meetings about the demographics. Well, I'll tell you one thing, the demographic for Platteville, for Grant County, the fastest growing demographics is not our young people. It's the seniors. We aren't even talking about senior housing. So I guess that's my only thing. I mean, I've gone on enough, but this is really a challenge. But Jim, I'm going to come back and say we need to all thank you for trying to make something happen that the city has been talking about that we need. And I'm no matter how this turns out, I hope we have continued good relationship and that we can work through this and make it better for everybody. Off my soapbox.
Ed?
Yes, thank you. I want to say a few things. Hope you can all hear me, because sometimes the person that I work for as far as speech therapy says, well, you don't talk loud enough, but I hope that I do talk loud enough. I started my career at Texas Tech University. I finished my PhD in 1963, and I moved there in 1963, and my career is in environmental quality. I'm a soil scientist, and so I lived there for 5 years, and I got to learn what a black blizzard is and how you drive home at when you look out in the distance, you see the black blizzard coming, and you drive with your lights on as you go home to get away from the black blizzard, because the black blizzard or the tumbleweed fills up your house up to the eaves. And that's why you see around in Lubbock, Texas, you see a lot of housing that has boards around it, or else you might say they put up areas so that they can get away from the tumbleweed. Now, we moved here in 1968. That was my first year of being at university here. And the first year I'll describe the housing that I was, I'll say, subjected to. I got a housing at a street not too far from where a tornado in, 2014, took down the house which was across the street from me. Anyway, the house that I obtained that year, 1968, was poor quality, very poor quality. It had no insulation in the walls. It was cement block walls, and incidentally, I'd never build a house with cement block. Never do it. It's not a good idea. And then I found that my young son used to play in the corners of the house, and he developed allergy as far as mold. So every corner was a moldy corner. Then I found out that the furnace that I had, oil furnace, oil that time was 16 cents a gallon. The oil furnace was leaking the pipe and blowing fuel oil, not fuel, but the gas out on us. So I had to tell the landlord, your furnace is leaking. This is a hazard to us. So I moved out of that one as fast as I could because it's such a poor quality to move into. So I believe in people being able to move into quality housing. In 1969, we moved to my present location. And as far as that location, we have been on a program of continual upkeep of the house, improvement of the house. My first big issue was to build a basement in the house because we wanted to be safe. One thing about Lubbock, Texas, in that area, was that if a tornado came, they would tell you, well, get in the tub. get in the tub and you'll be safe. Well, you'd be surprised when you looked up in the water tower and see all the stuff hanging out in the water tower. So the idea of that I could have bought a house down there in '68 for $22,000 and put in air conditioning with a pump for a few dollars. I bought the pump at a used store, spent $18 for it, and then I put in my own pump to cool the house. But I didn't like the idea of not having a place in which to go as far as protection against tornado. So then I told you I moved to that one in '68. I moved to 69 in '69, and I've been improving my house in general ever since. My goal has been improvement. I have been, through the years, I've been doing affordable housing for people. We have, let's see, three, I think 4 or 5 units at least affordable. But now I've reached the point where affordable housing needs to be of a higher cost, because I cannot afford affordable housing, so I need to go to a higher cost to people as far as affordable housing. But I've done it all these years, and many people have come to our housing and they say to me, well, I would have moved out, but you're so good to me as far as what you've done for me, I decided to stay. So I've had people stay 20 years, and some will say, well, I can't make it up the steps, up the stairway, and they'll say to me, well, I'll pay you part of the cost of a stairway to go upstairs, and I paid the other $3,000, and it's been a savings to people. You'd be surprised how you get broken legs, etc., and you need it. So through the years, I've been very much in favor of improvement of housing, and I very much in favor of improving housing here with the LRO, however you want to describe it. So I've been a person that's for it, and we need to improve it. And so what happened, I want to just describe what happened to the house across the street from me that I lived in 1968. Well, the people there, they bought a prefab house put together with sections. And so when a tornado came, that house in sections was the one that blew apart and blew the lady out, and she got injured, and a high amount of her property wound up in my backyard because her house was basically junk, poor quality. I don't want to ever see anything like that built again, poor quality. So I'm in favor of good quality, and I believe that the overlay district is the pathway to continue good quality of property that people like. So I am in favor of it to the greatest extent that I can do, and so I've continued to be for it, and that's how I look at this situation. Thank you. Those are my comments at this time.
Thank you, Ken, and I guess I'm the last one to comment. So I guess in echoing Kathy a bit, yes, Jim, you've lived here forever, and 3 or 4 times tonight I've asked, is it you that's going to develop it? Because I actually believe that people in this room would look at, and I believe when Keystone Estates were developed, even though you were not the developer, there were conditions put on the housing that was going to be put in Keystone Estates. There were, and I believe that's basically what people are trying to say here, is that I don't mind 6 lots. I don't mind duplexes. But I think people are trying to say, what is this going to look like in terms of our neighborhood? And perhaps, Jim, if you were the builder and we're developing it, and I know, Dan, a couple of times you said, well, there'll be restrictions on the lots. We haven't seen that. And maybe if that were a part of this, people would have a whole lot more confidence and be supportive of it. If there was some kind of, yes, these will be, we're looking at duplexes and we're expecting such and such in terms of the way it's constructed, like Ken said, quality construction, we're expecting this. I have no doubt that building the duplexes in terms of being affordable are more affordable than single family homes. I have no doubt. That's not a doubt. And I don't think anybody in this room is saying that's a doubt. What they're saying is, what is our neighborhood going to look like? Because you're not developing it. What they see is you've bought land and and your goal is to sell it and let someone else put something on it, but you want to allow that person to put anything on it that's an R2. You haven't said there's going to be any parameters in terms of that construction or in terms of that look or in terms of how it fits in the neighborhood. And I really think that's what these people are saying. That's why they want limited occupancy, because they're saying, we don't know what you're going to do. If you would tell us what you're going to do, then maybe we could get behind it. In fact, I think that they said, their preference would be R1, like they are, but they could go R2 if they have some assurance that it's going to be some kind of family dwelling instead of, something else. So, I have a lot of compassion for this. I have a lot of understanding that, yes, we need housing. But I mean, frankly, there's a pathway here that says if there are going to be restrictions or then why not talk about them right away so that we can, and if there are going to be no restrictions, then somehow the trust factor evaporates. So it's, I think more than anything here, this is a discussion about trust. And I think that there are enough examples in Platteville where people have brought plans forward and said, yep, this is kind of what we're going to do, and trust me on this. And what has happened is that's not what happened. And so the trust factor has gotten way out of line here. And frankly, I suspect that's what all of these people are here about, is how do we trust what's going to happen when all we hear is divide this into 6 lots, I want to sell it, and I'm not going to develop it. I just want to sell it to somebody else who's going to do it. I just want to get my, move on from it. So I really understand that. Here it's about trust. I don't think anybody's denying that we need housing. I don't think anybody's saying it shouldn't be 6 lots. I don't think anybody's saying they don't like duplexes. In fact, I think we've heard that there's a lot of duplexes in town that you can't even hardly, you don't even know they're for sale, and somebody's already bought them and somebody else has moved into them. So I don't see one person here saying we don't want duplexes. What I hear people saying is, what is it? Because you haven't given us enough information to know. So that's my comment. So that's council discussion. Unless, Bob, do you have anything else you want to say? Kathy? Lynn? Ken? All right.
That's it for this.
So then I would take a motion to close the public hearing.
I move we close the public hearing.
Okay, we have a motion by Ken and a second by Bob to close the public hearing. Colette will vote.
Pop,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Doss,
Yes?
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes,
motion carries.
Okay, this is the time, if there's going to be action, that the action be proposed.
I propose that we adopt the action that there be an LO district applied here.
So Ken, what I'm hearing, am I hearing you say you are proposing that we annex this 11.5 acres of land and with a zoning designation of R2,
Well,
limited occupancy? I mean, it's about annexation of land.
yes, I know, but I'm saying here that I wanted to include the RLO overlay district.
Okay. So he wants the motion to say, approving the annexation on Western Avenue with zoning the land R2, 1 and 2 family residential with the limited occupancy overlay district.
Yes,
That's his motion. Do I hear a second?
Barb, can I speak, please? So as a reminder, the request is annexation with R2 zoning.
We know that.
I know, so you cannot vote for the motion that was made
You can't make a motion.
to include the overlay district. That's not part of the request. So if that's the zoning that you want on the property, then you have to vote against the annexation.
Well, if nobody makes this motion, then there is no motion. Is that right?
I'm saying the motion that's on the table, you cannot pass.
So you're saying the motion on that's on the table, you can have. It can't be a motion.
I'm saying if you pass that, that would be improper. So the motion that he should be making is to recommend denial of the annexation as requested.
Okay, so Ken, since it wasn't requested for the overlay district, then what you should be requesting, Joe says, is denial of the request that was made, which was to approve this annexation with R2, 1 and 2 family, not with the overlay. So we either have to approve this or we have to say, deny this.
One question, please.
well,
Do you understand what?
no,
I mean, it's either you approve, you either vote, you either make a motion to approve the request as presented, or you make a motion to deny the request as presented. Are you holding now until you think about it? If so, I'm going to let Bob ask his question.
well, I thought I had the correct motion on this thing here.
Well, Joe is saying we can either only approve the request as it was made, which was R2, 1 and 2 family zoning with the annexation, or we have to deny the request. We can't change, we can't add or subtract anything to it. So either you approve the request, or approve it's, or you deny. I guess it's like a chocolate ice cream cone. Either you want it or you don't. Bob, did you have a question?
My question is, if this were denied, would Mr. Schneller have to go through the application process again and then bring it to the planning commission again and then to the council for informational purposes and then the council again for action?
Yeah, if this motion is denied, then you'd have to start over.
All three of those steps.
Right.
So Lynn?
No, I'm wondering if he was meaning the first recommendation, the one where staff recommends approval annexation request and also recommends approval of the rezoning of property to R2, 1 and 2 family residential after annexation. That's not
That doesn't
So
include
none
the
of these
overlay.
say anything about
The
the
overlay.
overlay. Was the purpose for us to, because why are we doing this then if it doesn't say it on the, why it never hit? the
Why?
verbiage? Why is there no verbiage that says
Because
that already exists? That exists.
no, the reason there's no, the people in the audience who have come would say that they have no problem with the R2, but they want the residential overlay district added. Joe is saying that we can't have that as a motion, that all we can do is approve it either as R2 or deny it as R2. And the overlay, because the applicant has not asked for the overlay district, we don't have the ability to add it or subtract it.
That's why it's not there.
Okay. I think
why
that's
the
what he's
verbiage is
trying to
not
say.
there.
All right? How did we get to this point?
Nobody put the, so now if we want it to happen, we have to deny it. And he has
If
to
you
go back
want the overlay district, if you believe it should be annexed with the overlay district, the only way that that ever possibly could happen is if you deny the request to annex it now without the overlay district.
Well, then I guess that's a motion I'll have to make.
Then you're making a motion to deny the annexation.
And it's gonna deny it and then it has to come back then,
Then it would have to come back.
has to come back.
Okay, so you're making a motion to deny the annexation as it's proposed, the 11 acres and as R2.
That's correct.
Okay. Motion is made to deny the annexation. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion to deny annexation, and we have a second to deny annexation. That would be denying the annexation and its designation as R2 because we can't do anything about the overlay district, according
Right.
to you.
Right, so the council has authority to change zoning on any property in the city at any time. This property is not in the city, so until it's in the city, you're subject to the petition as submitted.
So you have to annex it in order for it to work.
So you have to decide on the request as submitted.
As submitted.
Annexation with R2,
And
period.
that's the only thing that we can decide on, annexation with R2, so that's, the motion has been made, annexation with R2, without annexation. I don't know that we can take additional comments at this point in time. Just from staff. You're telling us that's the way it is. Annexation with R2 or no annexation?
Correct.
Because it's in the township, so we can't just vote to annex it and leave the zoning as it is.
The reasoning behind that is if the petition comes forward and I want this type of a zoning and you say, okay, we'll annex you, but then we're going to change the conditions on it, then you've already then now annexed it, and that's not what the petitioner wanted to have happen. It's kind of a switcheroo, if you will.
But Joe, you said the council can change zoning at any time.
For properties in the city.
So if this were accepted, and then a motion could be made at a different meeting to change the zoning to include the RLO designation?
Yes. But you'd have to go through
That's-
that proper procedure. There'd have to be the rezoning process would have to be, I mean, you could rezone this whole neighborhood as R3 if the council really wanted to, but you'd have to go through that process.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to deny annexation, which means denying, and the reason that that motion is as it is because it was a motion, it's a package deal, either annex with R2 or don't annex at all. And so now we vote. We have a motion and a second. I guess now we vote. I don't know, I mean,
The motion,
is to deny annexation. Because because the only option for zoning is R2 without overlay or anything. So that is the motion to deny the petition. All right,
Hold on, wait a minute. I gotta get it. Okay, so, but he can come back and do it again.
sure,
Okay,
anybody can come back and do it again.
I'm okay.
Okay. I think, does everybody understand?
No.
Okay. We will vote. The motion is to deny the annexation of the property because the annexation is tied to R2. There is no way to separate the two. There's no way to change the two. It's either annex as R2 or no annexation. I mean, that was the petition. Is that not right, Dan? That's the petition. That's the request.
So we have,
Oh, up.
so are we,
I know we have to vote, but I am really confused.
I am too. So.
How to explain it
No,
anymore.
it's not that.
No,
Not
I'm
that.
trying to get it to.
Okay,
Maybe the motion could be made just to.
no,
approve it
we
and
have a motion.
Vote no if you don't want to vote.
Yeah. The vote is, currently the vote is denying annexation. If you vote yes, you deny annexation. If you vote no, you don't deny annexation, which doesn't necessarily mean that it'll be annexed, I don't think. I don't think, is that true? Since the motion is to deny.
Motion is to deny. So do you want to deny it or do you not want to deny it?
So if you want to deny because it's annexation with R2 and no other parameters. This doesn't even include 6 lots because this doesn't even include the plat. This basically says R2. And at that point in time, if the petition to do 6 lots was withdrawn, then it would be one giant R2 designated 11.5 acres. So the motion is to deny. I don't know how else to explain this. All right,
Should I take the vote?
you can take the vote. Kathy? You're gonna vote either yes or no.
so if we vote,
What? You understand, the motion you made, Ken, is to deny annexation. So voting yes means that annexation is denied. Voting no means that you don't agree with that motion.
Said this is exciting, didn't it?
No, but
well,
do you understand the motion?
Yeah, I understand it.
Okay.
I get it. I get it.
Okay, well, we've got a motion, we're gonna have a vote
I don't know.
eventually.
I can vote yes.
If you vote yes, that denies the annexation.
Okay. I think the problem, yeah,
All right,
the problem,
well, no, we're just voting, there's no,
well,
Well,
I've gone through the RF before.
I know.
We
So-
did not. situation.
I understand. I guess you can abstain.
Is she taking any?
You know what? I am going to abstain because I really honestly don't understand. It's not clear to me a vote yes or no, how we pursue. I mean, what we do.
Can we
Well, this
change
one
the
we-
motion and get rid of the negative and just put in the motion to approve the annexation and then either vote yes or no? Would that be easier to?
You have to finish it.
I think,
You have to do
I
it.
don't think, since we have a motion,
Okay.
we're gonna go. All right, so you're gonna abstain?
She can't go with me though. So.
You deny annexation, is that a no or a yes? Yes, I deny annexation, no,
I'm gonna vote no.
no. All right? Kathy votes no.
Okay.
Colette?
Parrot,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
motion carries.
Now what?
Now, well, now we're done with the public hearing,
Can y'all?
because there's no other
have it
action.
Worded the right way, let,
I would suggest you make a motion to deny the preliminary plat.
right.
What?
Well, it's not,
There's a statutory requirement that says if you do not take action on a preliminary plat within a certain period of time, it's automatically approved. And if you're approving a property that's not in the city, you've got a mess. So please make a motion to deny the preliminary plat.
who wants to?
Okay, I'll make a motion
To deny the preliminary
preliminary
plat.
plat.
This is procedural only because
Correct.
otherwise we have okay.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion to deny the preliminary plat because it's not in the city. Now, so now Colette will vote.
Okay, Cop,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right, well, that was a
Oh.
2 hour, all right. I assume that many of you will leave, so we will take a 5-minute recess and then reconvene with the consent agenda, et cetera.
Man,
I'd like to get us back to order here, so let us move on with the consideration of the consent agenda. The following items may be approved on a single motion and vote due to their routine nature or previous discussion. Please let me know if you want separate discussion or action. We have council minutes from July 22nd, the regular meeting, and July 25th, the special meeting, payment of bills, the financial reports, appointments to boards and committees. And tonight I'm appointing Joanne Wilson to the museum board. Licenses, 1 and 2 year operator licenses to serve out and sell alcohol as are in your packet. Change of agent, Class A combination beer and alcohol license for Quick Trip. This is the premises at 430 South Water Street. The new agent would be Leah Guzman. And a notice of public records or a public records policy. And this basically tells us, this is basically a notice that says that we have a public records policy. So it's not, yeah, which is, Kathy and I wondered about that and it was like, what is that? And it's like a notice that says we have a policy. So you heard the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve all the items listed under the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, Colette will vote.
Cop,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yes.
Doss,
Yes.
Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
motion carries.
Okay, there were reports from boards, commissions, and committees in your packet. The Community Safe Routes Committee, Tom was on. If you want any information about that, you can talk to Howard or Bob. Library Board, Lynn?
Nothing to add.
Museum Board, Tom was also on that, so talk to Cody Grayborn if you have any questions on that. Police and Fire, Kathy?
Nothing to add.
Plan Commission, I have nothing to add, and Bob?
No, do I.
Okay, other reports in your packet were the water and sewer financial reports, the airport financial report, the CIP quarterly status report, and department progress reports. Let's move on then to our information and discussion items. The first one is the resolution for a conditional use permit, home occupation at 150 Roundtree Avenue. Joe?
Yes, so we have an applicant that has a contingent offer to purchase the property at 150 Roundtree Avenue. That's currently a single-family home. They would continue the use as a single-family home, but they would also like to hold events on the property or rent out part of the property for small public events. So under our zoning ordinance, that would be considered a type 3 home occupation, which requires approval as a conditional use. So as I mentioned, it primarily would still be a single-family residence, but they would like to host small events on the parlors, the main dining room, the courtyard areas of the property, so interior and exterior portions of the property. So the events that she's kind of has in mind would be baby showers, bridal showers, private celebrations, craft workshops, book clubs, that type of event. So under our ordinance, we have, basically there are three types of home occupations. Type 1 is just somebody has a business in their home, but they just work there, no people coming and going, et cetera, which does not actually require approval. Type 2 has clients, customers routinely coming to the property as part of the business operations. And then a step up from that would be type 3, where they're coming and going to the property, but part of the activities would be outside of the main building. So that would be the case with this property, because some of the uses would be in the courtyard, maybe the front porch of the property, so there'd be exterior of the structure. So the ordinance does have some guidelines on home occupations. The states that home occupation shall occupy no more than 45% of the residence. Interior activities shall be limited to the hours between 7 a.m., 10 p.m. Exterior activities shall be limited to the hours between 8 a.m., 8 p.m. unless altered by the council. And then obviously any violations of these standards or conditions would be a zoning violation. It could result in revocation of the home occupation. So the Plan Commission did consider this item at their August 4th meeting. They did recommend approval with several conditions. The interior activities shall be limited to the hours as mentioned, and the exterior as mentioned. Business activities shall be limited to the interior parlors and dining areas, to the exterior courtyard, and to the east porch and east lawn. So that would be the part of the property facing McGregor Plaza. The conditional use permit shall be limited to the current applicant. Any subsequent owner would need to reapply if they wanted to continue the use of that property as submitted. No amplified sound shall be allowed on the courtyard or outside areas. There shall be a 1-year review of the permit, and there should be a maximum occupancy limit for the property. And they had asked the applicant to provide a suggestion as far as that number for consideration by the council. So since that Plan Commission meeting, the applicant has submitted some additional information, and there were some additional questions at the Plan Commission and discussion. So at the Plan Commission meeting, there was a suggestion that the permit should be reevaluated at a future date. So this suggestion was for 1 year, as I mentioned in the conditions, but I found out after the meeting, I think Eileen Nichols brought it up at the Plan Commission. She thought she saw it somewhere and then she couldn't find it. I was looking at the Plan Commission meeting and I couldn't find it. Well, there is a statement in there that type 3 home occupations should be reevaluated after 2 years. So that's where she had seen that at some point in the past. There was also a discussion, the maximum occupancy limit, as I mentioned. The applicant has provided some additional square footage numbers of the areas inside that she would like to use. So I took those numbers and used the same criteria that the city uses for the liquor license properties when we designate a maximum capacity for the buildings. Based on those numbers, she could have up to 150 people as far as in these events. However, she has suggested a maximum of 75 people. So staff would agree with the Plan Commission as far as the conditions. However, we would suggest the 2-year review period, so we're maintaining consistency with the ordinance requirements. And we would also agree with the number of 75 people as a maximum rather than the theoretical 150 people. So with those conditions, staff would recommend approval, and I've outlined all the conditions as affirmative motion. Any questions? So this would be on for action at the next meeting.
So Joe, is it possible, it says business activities on the property be limited to the interior parlors and dining areas to the exterior courtyard? Could we add the verbiage exterior courtyard bounded by the fence? And if that fence is removed, bounded by that area that encompassed that fence?
Yes.
My
yes.
understanding. So could you please make sure that that's added to the motion the next time? So there is a fence out there that's X feet high. It ends at, the way I looked at it from the road, it ends on the south side by the
South wing of the house.
south wing of the house. And then on the north side, I think it ends by that external garage. I'd also like a further definition of the east porch, east porch and the east lawn. I would propose that there is a driveway that comes into that property from the south. And I would suggest that there would be no activity to the west of the east part of that driveway. So that driveway would be a boundary, no activity beyond that, or that would be a violation of the zoning ordinance. And again, I think that the exterior, that there was already a condition on it that said no amplified sound allowed on in the courtyard or in the outside areas.
Yes, that's correct. I
Would you
read
also,
that one.
would you also clarify, is this an individual that's applying?
It is an individual that applied, but she will be living there with family.
That's fine. I'm just
Yeah.
this is limited to the applicant, so I want to be very sure of who is the applicant.
The application was
So the
submitted by
applicant
one
is
individual.
Person, Amanda Reitz or whatever her
Right.
name is. And that's it. It's not an LLC. It's not a combination of people. It's one person.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Other questions that you have on this? Several people have asked, first of all, Chuck Bowman has registered in favor of this conditional use permit. David Miller has asked to speak in favor, and Monica has also asked to speak in favor. So if you guys want to come up and
So could I make a comment?
sure. You can make a comment while David is coming up.
When it later?
Yep.
Okay.
Proceed. Good evening. My name is David Miller, and I do live at 150 Roundtree Avenue, commonly known as the Roundtree House. This is a large historic house, and it's very special in many ways and important in the Platteville history. Monica and I purchased this special home from Mr. Frank Evans, and we have lived there going on 4.5 years. After our closing with Frank, his stepdaughter told us that one of the reasons Mr. Frank sold the house to us was that Monica and I both promised him that we would be good stewards of the house that he loved. And to sell that house was a bittersweet moment for him. I do believe that Monica and I have been good stewards and have continued the renovations that Mr. Frank and Mary Kelly began after they purchased the Roundtree house from the university. And the university used it for the house for the chancellors. Now, Monica and I find that two of us living in a near 6,000 square foot historic home on 3 different levels is more than we can truly manage at this point in our life. We feel we need to downsize to a smaller home and hopefully something that is on a single level. So now it's time for that bittersweet moment for us and the time to find the family to pass the torch to as the next steward of the Roundtree House. And you have to realize that it takes a special person to purchase a very large historic home and take on all the special requirements of a home that's on the state as well as the Federal Registry of Historic Places. And that's evident by the near 5 years that the Roundtree House stood empty before we bought it. There are So it takes special folks to want to come into that. So that brings us to Amanda Reitz as she comes into this picture. She and her family have owned and renovated historic homes and are indeed knowledgeable of all the requirements and the restrictions of and the care of a historic home. And based upon spending time with them, I believe that they truly will take care of this house and maintain the intent that Mr. Frank wanted from us, which is to be good stewards. Amanda, as Joe had indicated, will live there, and her application is for small events that for a portion of the house. And one of my points is these events are very similar to what Monica and I have had over the past 4 years. We've had bridal showers, we've had baby showers, we've had old home groups come in and spend time there. And for example, we had one shower for baby shower where we had 50 to 60 folks. And we had no issues. We've had no issues with any of the events, any of the events that we've had there in the past. But there's always concerns, and there have been concerns that have been expressed, and I'd like to talk to those. The first was traffic and parking. Our events over these past 4.5 years have resulted in the following situations. The front of our house faces Roundtree Avenue, and it takes up the vast majority of the first block on Roundtree. And guests, as they come to our house, the entrance, the steps come up off of Roundtree, and they come to our main entrance. So the natural course of events is for people to park in front of our house, which is nearly a block long, and that's probably 12 to 15 cars. And directly across of Roundtree is city parking, and those go straight in. And I believe there's approximately 28. Joe may be able to correct me on the total number there, of which I know there's 4 that are specifically rented. So there's adequate parking directly in front of our house. And beyond that, our neighbor to the north, the Mound Street Bank, has generously told us that If the bank is not open, we are more than welcome to use their parking lot. So there is significant parking directly in front of the house and to our north. So traffic and parking normally is going to be concentrated on Roundtree Avenue. There's little need for anyone to be on Bailey or Mitchell Street because they're going to have to walk a significant amount of distance to get to our house. So parking and traffic should be minimized as far as except on Roundtree. Noise. Noise has been considered for events that are going to occur inside the house. It's hard for me to be able to believe that there will be any impact on the exterior. We have walls that are in the house that vary between 12 to 18 inches thick. There's brick and stone and 2x4s and 2x6s. Back when 2x4s and 2x6s really were 2x4 and 2x6s. And plaster on the interior. So the rooms that are being discussed are on the east side of the house, which again faces Roundtree. Now, events in the courtyard has been discussed before. Two parts of the courtyard are covered by 2 stories of the house. A third side is covered by our 2-car garage, again brick, and the one west side does have a stockade fence, and behind the stockade fence are arborvitaes, which have been there many, many years, and behind that are deciduous trees. The courtyard is very enclosed and protected. In all of the events that we've had in the courtyard, which we have many because I believe that is one of the most intriguing parts of the Roundtree facility, is that it is enclosed and with the trees, it's shaded, it's a wonderful place to spend time.
Mr. Miller, I'm going to ask you to wrap up. It's been 10
I
minutes.
certainly will. So I don't see an issue with noise. It can be contained. There's restrictions on amplified. Security, my last point. Security, our courtyard does back up to the 2 properties. They are single-family homes, but the courtyard is totally enclosed. If someone was to try to get into the backyards of those 2 homes, they would have to scale a 6-foot stockade fence. Then there's a metal picket fence and a wire fence on the other side of that. There's 3 fences that they would have to scale to get into these backyards. And I'm telling you, that would not be an easy task. I think there's more chance of security issues from the 4 houses that are within a block that have students from UW who have way more parties than I think are going to occur here. So my conclusion to you is that I urge you to approve this conditional use permit for 4 reasons. 1, it allows for a new steward to come in and take a house and keep it up, and they have a vested interest in maintaining it in the conditions that it is. Number 2, It provides a new venue for people, for the public to come in and enjoy this historic house. And it is a venue that is not presently available within the Platteville area. It allows access to this property to the general public. 3, it brings in new business to Platteville, and every town needs new businesses to come in to replace those that move on. So I urge you, council members, to please, and I implore you, please come to the Roundtree House. Come in. It is open to you. Please come in and physically look at the rooms that we're talking about and look at the courtyard and see firsthand what we're talking about. And in that way, I think we can make the best informed decision, which I think is having the same activities that were performed under the university, under Monica and I, will just be continued by Amanda. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. Thank you.
Okay. Let's keep it to 5 minutes. Some of us are getting a bit wary.
Hello, I'm Monica Miller, and I live at 150 Roundtree in the historic Roundtree House. I would like to encourage you to approve the conditional use permit for this house. On several occasions, I've shared with you the special history of the Roundtree House. While I won't go through the history lesson again, I will tell you that starting with John Roundtree, this house has been shared with the Platteville community. Many historical documents share how Ulysses S. Grant to literally thousands and thousands of students and guests have been entertained in this treasure of Platteville since 1854. I can't tell you the number of times people have come up to us to tell us about events they attended at Roundtree House. People light up and are so excited to share their memories and thank us for our part in preserving this beautiful house for the future. We have always invited people to stop by to see the house and share their memories. Many have taken us up on this offer. I would also like to extend an invitation for you to please come by. We have welcomed neighbors, students, strangers, and friends since buying this house in 2021. I have loved every guest we have entertained, and there have been hundreds. But one stands out because she tied history to our time as stewards of Roundtree House. That visitor was Ellen Ulsvik, the daughter of Chancellor Ulsvik, the longest-serving chancellor at UWP. I've been told that Chancellor Ulsvik is the reason that UWP flourished and became the UWP of today. Ellen Ulsvik grew up at Roundtree, and it holds a special place in her heart. During our visit, she went from laughing to some tears while sharing stories from her childhood. When she left, she hugged me and told me how her mom and dad would be so thrilled with what Dave and I have done with the house, and how thrilled that we continue to share this special house just like her mom and dad did. It has been our honor and joy to be stewards of this grand house and continue its tradition of hospitality to our community. I encourage you to approve the conditional use permit so Roundtree House is shared as a beloved treasure of Platteville's community. I thank you for your consideration on this matter and your obvious commitment to the future of our community. Thank you.
I've had 2 people ask to speak against this permit. And we'll start with Cindy Tang.
My name is Cindy Tang. I live at 995 Highbury Circle. And I would like to propose capping the guests to 40 people. And this is due to parking. I believe that there are about 28 diagonal parking spots behind Dick's, but the city rents out 6. And the spaces in front of Roundtree, there are spaces, but not enough to accommodate 75 guests. We already have people that work downtown and live downtown that are parking in this area. And if you would add that many guests, it would go to the other streets, to Bailey and the side street also. If they're going to use Mount City Bank parking lot, I think there needs to be a formal agreement that they agree to parking for events. But without that, I think it would impact the neighbors because the adjacent streets cannot absorb the additional cars. So please consider lowering the capacity.
And we have John Jones.
Good evening. Thanks for the time, you guys. I'll be quick. It's been a long night. My name is John Jones, and I'm speaking on behalf of my mother, Ruth Jones, who resides at 185 Bailey Avenue and has for 58 years. She knew the Olsviks well. They're big friends of our family, have been for many years. And I actually grew up many times in that house, and that's actually where I was babysat as a kid. At the recent Plan Commission meeting, my mother expressed her concerns in opposition to the proposed Type 3 conditional use permit for 150 Roundtree, which directly borders her property. You know, Barb, I appreciate your comments about no activities west of the driveway because that's immediately adjacent to my mom's property and sight of it from her patio, from her from her rooms, from her backyard. So, you know, and I think the biggest thing here is that the City of Platteville's Type 3 home occupation conditional use permit states that the occupation should not be detrimental to the health, welfare, and safety of the neighborhood or interfere with the comfortable enjoyment of life, property, and recreation by residents. And so after reviewing the permit documents, my mom has the following concerns and questions, okay? Noise. Many of these things, you know, David has already spoken about. The permit as written allows gatherings up to 75 people. Okay, I would contend that 75 people is not a small number of people. You know, have there been parties of that number there in the past? I'm sure there have. I think what we're talking about here is the number and the frequency of these parties. We have no idea what the applicant has for their intent. And it is something as we go forward, it's something I think you guys need to consider because we're talking about somebody who's moving into town. And I understand the desire to want to sell your home, and it is a beautiful home and it is historic. But we really don't know. We don't, you know, these people aren't residents of our town at this point in time. And so, you know, such gatherings, you know, with 75 people in the courtyard area, although it is enclosed, that noise will carry and has, right? And so does that 75 people on the courtyard? That's a large number. And, you know, something that is obviously concerning. So if approved, my mother requests that the permit limits the maximum occupancy to 30. We'll go with 40 if Cindy's, you know, as we go forward, because this is number more in line, which I would call small events that were outlined for you before. Safety is an issue. Traffic and parking. This resident does not have adequate on-site event parking, and large and or frequent events will increase vehicular and pedestrian traffic and parking congestion. Okay, I know there's a lot of parking spots across the way. I drove here today. The road was closed and there was still 12, 15 cars in there. So they're not always going to be available for people to use. And so where's that traffic going to flow? It's going to flow to Mitchell. It's going to flow to Bailey. And it's going to, you know, maybe it goes to Mountain City Bank, but maybe the event isn't on a weekend when they're not running. So, you know, so this is a problem. that also I want to thank the council. You guys have addressed this before. My mom has fought for her neighborhood for 58 years, right? There used to be homes where Mountain City Bank is, and she fought that then. She fought against the number of college houses we have in the neighborhood. We have that anyway. But she fought for parking. And so I think we're at a point where, if we're looking at this approval, remembering somebody who's been and honoring somebody who's been in the neighborhood for 58 years and her needs and desires is important. It was very encouraging for me to hear from all the people that came in today, because when you own a home in a neighborhood, and you guys all own a home in a neighborhood, there's nothing you can do if the council decides to change something in the neighborhood. You still own a home in that neighborhood. And my mom has been in that neighborhood for 58 years, and I, would love to see Roundtree thrive into the future. So it is a safety concern. Just something that hasn't brought up, and I really don't know where this is, and that's alcohol. Will alcohol be served at these events? If so, is a liquor license required? And then, who will monitor the compliance of that? I don't, and I've not heard that talked about. And I don't know if that's something that's going to happen there or not. Usually, when liquor's involved, things don't usually get better, for the residents of the area. So there needs to be, this is a significant safety concern. There needs to be some clear guidelines and enforcement, and there may be, I don't know. I've just heard no discussion about it whatsoever. And finally, length of permit. At the Plan Commission meeting, it was stated the permit would be reviewed in 1 year. Joe clarified that they'd like to take it to 2 years. And I think my mom has asked that we request that the permit be reviewed in maybe a little over a year, January of 2027. Put a time frame on it, and then we have a chance to see how this works for everybody, not only for us, but for the applicant. So in conclusion, my mother, a resident of Platteville, and this home for 58 years remains opposed to the conditional use permit. Frequent events of this nature will inevitably bring increased noise, traffic, and parking congestion to this quiet residential neighborhood. If the council chooses to approve the permit, she respectfully asks that the following conditions be included. Limit events to no more than 30 attendees per event. No events will be held on the south side of the house, which you've already discussed. Maintain parking regulations with strict enforcement, because I don't think many events aren't 2 hours, which most of that parking is 2-hour parking. Clear regulation and enforcement of alcohol use. And finally, the review of the conditional permit use in January of 2027, which I don't think is a very outlandish thing to ask for, as we're doing something completely new with the residents. And the purchase is conditional based on this conditional use permit, right? So they're coming here, I understand, to be members of the community, but they're also here to run a business. And so I think those two things are very important to remember. So we also invite you to come to my mom's, walk in the backyard, take a look at the proximity to the houses, to the courtyard, to the house. And I would invite you to do that as soon and often as you can. So thank you for your time and your thoughtful consideration.
Okay. Joe, it would be good if I think I brought up alcohol at the Plan Commission. So it would be good if you wrote what the regulation is relative to alcohol use in this type of residence or whatever. And that might take Colette or somebody else to clarify in terms of what the alcohol use policy would be. Ken, you have some questions?
Yes, I was looking at, let's see, where is the last page? Oh, here it is, personal information. That's personal information, it says, my sister, brother-in-law, and their 2 small children, in parentheses, 2 and 4 years, intend to move into the house so that my sister and I can closely collaborate on the laundering of the event space. Launching, excuse me. I'm a full-time remote worker, as is my brother-in-law, and we will both be continuing with work currently with the launch of the event space. Managing outside employment concurrently with the event space will create time constraints that will eventually limit the feasible number of events taking place on the property. So I don't want to go along or too long, but I'm going back to my early years in Platteville. And so my early years in Platteville started out in 1952. And so in 1952, I came to Platteville because of the fact I could not get into the University of Wisconsin at Madison. Because going to Madison, I found out that my favorite subjects at my high school were woodworking and agriculture. And so they did not include things like physics, chemistry, English, math, whatever. So I came to Platteville and I earned A's in all my classes. And then I somehow got aware of the fact, I was made aware of the fact that if I made those up, I could go to the University of Wisconsin at Madison. So that's what I did. So I spent the first years, 1952 was here, and my later years were spent at Madison, 1953 and on, catching up with the classes which I had missed. So I was doing summer school, going to the classes up there on campus there. I think the Central, I think was the place, and so it was on and on. So that's what I did to catch up, so that I finally went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I earned a degree there. And so I finally came back here as a faculty member. I don't want to get too wound up on all these things, but anyway, in 52, when I was here, I lived over next on the property next to Nyland. If anybody knows Nyland, he was the head of agriculture here at Platteville. So I got to know him, and also I got to know, see who else. I got to know Agnes Loveland. I got to know her daughter, because on Sunday afternoon, we sit together and play canasta. And also I got to know about the son. The son, he lived, I think, in Potosi, and I got to know him because he was a lawyer, and so I wound up cleaning his law office downtown. So that's one of my jobs. So why I moved to live over on the street on Hickory with a bunch of minors, I don't know. They must have thought I was good enough to live with them. I don't know what this issue. But anyway, the minors thought that they were the better of the lot as far as people living with them. So I did work. I did work right away with Mrs. Loveland, and so I went and I worked at the what do we call it? I got to think of the brain here now. I mowed, I raked and mowed for McGregor Plaza. That's why the place is called McGregor Plaza, because I worked there. So,
And do you have a question about Roundtree House?
Roundtree House?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about here,
No,
Roundtree
but
House.
I'm telling you. And so I got to working with the previous owner, Frank Evans, and his person that he worked with, and they invited me to look at conditions around the house. And one of the conditions that Joe will remember is that there was noise coming from the project across the street. Frank Evans had a device so he could measure sound, and so we measured sound. And so there was sound coming from McGregor Plaza. Is that correct, Joe?
Correct.
That's correct. And we spent $15,000. The city provided $15,000 to build the high wood stands above McGregor, above the property there. And so I got into the property, and so I was invited in to look at what the housing was exposed to as far as light. And so I went up, they invited me upstairs. So I looked out at the property, and so the property was getting too much light from the city, and so I recommended to the city that they reduce the amount of light coming into the house. So that's one thing I worked on. Another thing I worked on was with Frank Evans and his work. So I guess I could say that I'm quite aware of the situation there, and I will certainly enjoy coming to see you in person, both of you, to look at the property. So I think that's better than me trying to parcel out everything I want to say.
Good. Anybody else with questions?
Nope, no questions.
Bob, no questions? Kathy? Okay.
I guess regarding the parking, I wouldn't think, given the types of events that this house is really equipped to do, that I wouldn't think there'd be that many when there'd be 75 people and there wouldn't be in 75 different cars. But I also didn't know if people could possibly park in McGregor Plaza. There's a big parking lot there, and people will be able to find parking. I did, after the meeting, I looked at Realtor.com. And this house is not really designed for rowdy parties. And it's very period specific in its renovation. I think the fact that Ms. Reitz is going to live with her, in the house, I do think that they will want to have, calm events. And
Okay, anybody else? Otherwise, we'll move, is there a public hearing? Does this require a public hearing next time, Joe, or is this just regular?
It's the action by the council.
It's just regular action by the council. So this will be moved into an action item for our next meeting in 2 weeks. Okay,
I
let's
do have
move on to.
do have a question. My question is, who is, and I think you may have brought it up, The question is, who is going to check on the number of people that are on the property witnessing some event? Who's going to do that? Is that going to be a staff event?
Is that a
gonna be
police?
the city,
I would say that's probably a zoning issue, so it would probably be me or building inspector or somebody
Yeah.
from city.
So enforcement would fall to you, Joe.
I believe so, yes.
what'd you say?
Enforcement,
Yes, and who's going to enforce it?
Joe.
No.
Okay?
So they'd have to call up Joe. or
They'd have to,
Whitaker.
somebody would have to call Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so this will be moved to action at the next meeting. And I think we've heard the issues and we've seen some conditions. We've heard of additional requests from Ms. Jones. And I've made an additional request relative to the alcohol, what the alcohol policy is for a space like this. So that will also be included in the next
Okay.
information package.
So I will add, I did get an email from Mount City Bank regarding the parking, so I will add that to the packet as well.
Okay. Okay, good.
And as far as within, there would be no handicap accessibility to go down.
I don't think that that's within our purview in terms of
Yeah,
handicap
I'm just
accessibility.
asking if you go down so many feet, is there going to be any handicap accessibility? Not going to cover that?
So I did give the applicant a heads up that that would probably be a question, so I'm anticipating she'll provide more information at the next meeting.
Okay.
All right, like I said, this moves on then for a council decision action at the next meeting, which is in 2 weeks. Let's move on then to the procedure for filling the alderman at large position.
Madam President, we've taken action to solicit for candidates to serve for the remainder of the vacant seat for city council. As of right now, we're looking to have applications submitted in no later than August 22nd, responding to the questions that are put on the summary. We're anticipating then that these candidates would arrive on September 9th in the Common Council meeting to take 5 minutes to interview for presentations, and then followed by 5 to 10 minutes from council members to question those applicants. From there, then we would anticipate at that same meeting on September 9th that the council would take actions to then appoint a member to that seat. Historically, we've done that through open for nominations, and then I believe we can't do secret ballot, but we could do ballot voting as we've done. And then we would have somebody then potentially that would be appointed, and they would join us then for orientation and seating on September 23rd to swear in. If there are no significant discrepancies or anything that you have problems with that, we're going to continue on it, but this is our chance at this meeting to say, I think we should do something different. Madam President.
This is the procedure that we've used in the past. Anybody with questions or anything?
I just have a comment. So they would come and make a presentation for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then be Q&A for 5 or 10. What if we get 10 applicants?
Well, then
Well, I know,
I
but
know.
I'm just saying that could be, that
So,
the number could make that meeting considerably longer. Would there be a consideration that if we get a certain number that those
I think just to say, we're asking for applications by August 22nd. We have another council meeting. That's I believe that's a Friday, right, Clint?
Yes, we would have
So, and then
opportunity
the
on the
council meeting on Tuesday, if Clint reports there are 10 or 14 or 75 applicants, then I think at that council meeting, this will again be on.
Then
And then we would,
okay.
monitor, or we would refine our timeline at that point. But at this point in time, How many applicants do you have?
One, I believe, Colette. Did you receive any other ones today? We have one right now.
Very good. We have one. So that's good. We didn't have 31 like tonight, or 131. All right. So that sounds good. We'll take a look at that and review the procedure at the next meeting and make any modifications that might be required due to the number of applicants. The third thing on our information and discussion agenda then is awarding contract for road design, roof design services, pardon me, for the hail damage restoration.
Madam President, following the April 18th hail event, the city sustained hail damages to many of our buildings. In efforts to help fully assess the damage and develop a recovery solution, staff is recommending to contract with STR Specialty Engineering Group of Madison, Wisconsin. Specialty Engineering Group LLC has submitted a proposal to provide roof design services for multiple city-owned buildings affected by the hail damage. Services include assessment review, specification development, bidding assistance, contract administration, and construction oversight. STR will prepare construction documents, facilitate competitive bidding, and provide contract administration through project closeout. The scope covers multiple locations and is based on prior damage assessment reports that we received through our insurance adjuster and also by our maintenance engineer, Shannon. We're also exploring services for STR to assess with planning with damage to our windows and siding. The impacts on this financially, professional fees are set at 8% on their contracts. For the roof, I'm hoping that the siding and the windows come back in the same type of a value. Fees will be invoiced in two phases of 60% completion and 40% completion. Funding is anticipated to come, hopefully mostly from the insurance proceeds that we would have. They do have a certain percentage of having overages for administration of your fixing for this type of purposes, but we don't know that in its entirety because some of our fixes are going to be replacement value and some are going to be cash value. So while we're anticipating that most of these fees hopefully are going to be captured through the insurance claims themselves, if we're doing projects, say like a roof that's depreciated past 15 years, we might only be getting cash value and not replacement value, and then that could lead to some discrepancies in which we might have to get clever and figure out where some additional fundings are. But all those things are kind of what we're trying to also figure out through this engineering group. I anticipate on bringing back the contract that you see, hopefully with an amendment though to include both windows and siding, Madam President.
Okay, anybody with questions on this? So we've, EMC is our insurance?
Correct.
They've been through and they've said this, this, and that. So this is, then we would be hiring our person
Yes, to assess their
to
results.
assess their work and say, you missed this, we think that, whatever, and then there would be some.
Possibly, and then with that too, then giving a recommendation on, well, they said this is damaged, but we think you can get away with keeping that as is, but this other thing we want to fix, and then they'll help us also then build the entire specification package to put out for bidding.
I have no problem with this. Does anybody? No. Okay. Then this will also be on for action at our next meeting. All right, I think we have one, our second motion of the evening, or actually our third motion of the evening.
I move that we adjourn.
A second.
All right, Colette will vote.
Okay, Hop,
Yes.
Parrot,
Yeah.
Doss,
Yes.
Yates,
Yes.
Killian. Motion carries.